Hey everybody, let me get this high. There we go. I think I got it. All right, thank you. I loved that version of O Come, O Come Emmanuel. I feel like a bad pastor when I say this. I really don't like that song very much. I mean, we're singing, "Oh, come, God, with us." I'm like, I don't like it. That feels like a bad pastor thing. But I liked that one. That was cool. All right, before we get started, we have something pretty important we need to figure out. So this is a new shirt. Okay? And Anna apparently hates this shirt. I don't know, is Anna in here? Yeah, there's Anna right there. She's got her head down because she's been exposed in her anger towards this shirt. What's the general rule? Is this a decent shirt? Are we okay here? Meg Hurl. That was like your face said plenty, Meg. Your face said plenty. What's that?
I like the shirt, but not the pants.
Oh. Okay, in all fairness, that was an issue that... What's wrong? Why? Hands are starting to fly up around here. Well, Danielle, you too? At two, Danielle?
Is it a t-shirt material?
It is.
Okay, so it could be borderline pajamas.
Let me tell you. Emmett? Thank you. Emmett is with me. What's that? Thank you. This side? Slightly darker pants? I feel like this is a good combination, No? I need darker pants. Wow. This is... It's not the same color, Josh. Okay, there you go. All right. Well, we're done. That's it. All right. I look like what? A character from Wii Sports? All right. I just made a decision. We're bringing back church discipline into this place. This is our time. I think the Lord is moving. We're gonna start. Yeah, we're gonna start doing that. People are gonna be sent out of the church. All right. Let's pray. I'm only gonna pray for some of you. All right. Lord, I just thank you for this time when we can be together. I thank you when we can take time. I just thank you for the service this morning and just the focus on Advent. Lord, those seasons of preparation can be tough in an environment like this because with the academic calendar, things just get kind of pushed around and other things kind of come up and take all the air from these big moments. And Lord, so these times where we can just slow down and remember what is essential is important for us. It's important for our souls. Thank you. God, speak to us as we kind of look at this moment, this collision between your kingdom and the kingdom of this world and the birth of our Savior, Jesus. Help us to hear you in the midst of it, Lord, please. Amen. So last week we started this short Advent series that will finish before Advent finishes, but most of y'all will leave. And so we're just doing 3 weeks, and we're calling it Collision. And it is the reason is because in a very real way, there is this collision between the way the Scripture describes things as the kingdom of God and the kingdom of this world. And there is this moment where those two just collide at the physical birth of Jesus. And last week, Christian started it off. It started off really well. And he talked about this interaction that Gabriel, an angel, had with Mary, this young woman. She was engaged, but she was not married. And she was told this just on some average night. We don't know. It wasn't like, there was like this countdown clock over Mary's head where it was like counting down. And when it got to 0, she knew, okay, something big that's going to be in the Bible one day is going to happen to me. She was just going through a normal day. And all of a sudden there's an angel. And so she's afraid because she wasn't expecting one. And he tells her, he tells her this amazing thing that's going to happen, but this thing that has all kinds of implications for her life. I mean, huge, immediate implications for her life. And then it culminates in this thing that she says, I am the Lord's servant. May it be to me as you have said. Now, what we're talking about tonight actually happened about 6 months earlier. We're not exactly sure exactly how many, but certainly within a year, but likely right around 6 months earlier. All right? And we're going to look at the birth of John the Baptist. Okay? So this is also in Luke. It's just a little bit earlier in Luke. And I'm going to read it from my Bible. And I'm sorry, I wasn't paying close enough attention when I did this, but it's a slightly different translation than what you'll see on the screen, but it all means the same thing, And so just kind of follow along. Let's kind of walk through what happened. All right? In the time of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah who belonged to the priestly division of Abijah. His wife Elizabeth was also a descendant of Aaron. Now, we've talked about this before. Luke, and one of the reasons I like Luke is he was the one that gave the most details about what was going on. He was the one, his biography of Jesus is the most chronologically consistent. We've mentioned this a bunch of times. It was perfectly acceptable. In fact, it was expected that someone that was writing a biography back in Jesus' day, they might handle it chronologically. They certainly could do that. Or what they would do is they would take the things that were happening in that person that they were talking about, and they would clump them so that you could get kind of what was going on, the most important parts of that, right? It's part of the reason that when we read the Gospels and we read what happened in the week leading up to Jesus, his arrest, his crucifixion, his resurrection, is a reason that they're listed in different orders. It's not because nobody thought to think, should we probably try to get this right? It's that they're trying to accomplish different things, so they clump them differently. Well, Luke is the one that he does it the most chronologically, and he gives all these little details along the way that are important. We don't have time to go into all of them tonight. All right? So they were both, this was Zechariah, and he was a priest. This is how much we know so far. It says, both of them were righteous in the sight of the Lord, observing all the Lord's commands and decrees blamelessly. Now, this was a phrase that was used in the first century. Well, it was used before that. It was used, when they talk about Job. Job was blameless in the eyes of God. Things like this, they don't mean that they never sinned. All right? When they say that they followed his commands and decrees blamelessly, it means that he took them very seriously. But it's also, there's a little bit of something else in there. Because the Pharisees also took his commands very seriously. So they would obey them very carefully, but they would miss the heart of it. And so they weren't described this way. When someone was described this way, what it meant was they took very seriously the law, but they got the gist of what it was pointing to. That this law wasn't just to be followed just mindlessly or followed and it just would not have any effect on your heart, that God was trying to shape them through the law. So this was someone that kind of got it. All right? He and his wife both kind of got it. But they were childless because Elizabeth was not able to conceive, and they were both well advanced in years. So this is also a very important thing. They hadn't had any kids. All right? We've talked about what a big deal that was in the first century, and it was a big deal from before that. That just the sense that it wasn't just the sadness of not being able to have children when you want to have children. There was also a general ambient cultural thought that if you couldn't, God was getting you for something. That there was something about you that didn't deserve them, or you were being punished. And so you kind of carried with you this shame of this sense that you are under the heavy hand of God, that he's getting you back. Once when Zechariah's division was on duty and he was serving as priest before God, he was chosen by lot, according to the custom of the priesthood, to go into the temple and burn incense. And when the time for the burning of incense came, all the assembled worshipers were praying outside. All right, now, what we have here, again, this is just Luke laying everything out. So Zechariah, he was a priest. The temple, it was like the biggest employer in the area. All right? A lot of people worked at the temple, but not a lot of people could live in Jerusalem around the temple. Jerusalem was very small. It was very compact with people. It's like trying to buy a house in Blacksburg. It's just really hard to do. And so a lot of people would have to travel, in some cases, a priest could have to travel 3 or 4 days just to get to the temple. And so what they would do is they'd say, okay, you're going to be on duty for a while, then you're off, and you can go home, and then you're on, and you're off. And that's how, so he was on, and it said that he was chosen by lot, according to the custom of the priesthood, to go into the temple of the Lord and burn incense. Now, we have a picture. See that? That's a picture. What do you guys think, right? I didn't lie. All right, this is kind of a cutaway of one idea of what the temple would have looked like. I have a laser pointer, but I don't have it with me. It's not as helpful. But if you look right, I don't know. If you can see a little spot of blue, I can't get up to where I can kind of mark where it is. But if you see the cutaway, you see that there's a curtain right in the middle of the picture, and right at the base of the curtain is a spot of blue. That's where Zechariah would have been. This gives a sense of the scale of how big the temple was. Just on the other side of that long curtain, that was the Holy of Holies. That was the place that only the high priest could go, and they could only go once a year. And that was where the presence of God was. And so Zechariah was right on the outside, and they would fill these censers, these bowls, with incense. And what that did is it burned. They would pray over the things that they had been asked to pray for and the things that they were praying for. And then as the smoke rose, that was just kind of their way of signifying that God was hearing their prayer. As the smoke rose to God, he was hearing this. And so he was chosen by lot, which was a way that they used back in their day to kind of see what the Spirit wanted them to do. They would use different things, but they would just kind of, roll dice, not really. But, they have things that they would cast, and based on the way they fell, they believed that the Spirit was kind of directing them to do one thing or another thing. And it seems like at times the Spirit actually used that. He's like, oh, okay, you're doing that. So the Spirit wanted Zechariah in that room by himself. Everyone else was outside, because he was going to have an interaction with Zechariah. Then an angel of the Lord appeared to him, standing at the right side of the altar of incense. When Zechariah saw him, he was startled and gripped with fear. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah. Your prayer has been heard. Your wife, Elizabeth, will bear you a son, and you're to call him John." The moment, the power of that moment. If you're Zechariah, you and your wife are getting old. You're to the point where you don't anticipate you're going to be able to have kids anymore. You haven't been able to have them up to this point. Probably for them, we don't want to read too much where the scripture doesn't say, okay, this is exactly how it is. But probably, it would certainly be understandable if this was one of the biggest, if not the biggest wound that they had through their life. The biggest disappointment, the biggest thing that they had been asking God for. These were people that followed the law. These were people that understood that the law was directing them back to God. And so they were being directed back to God. And they were saying, God, when can we have a child? What is in us that makes us not worthy? How many questions would you have year after year after year? I have friends today that struggle with infertility. And it is one of the most painful things. It's constantly reminding them. Whenever one of our friends gets pregnant, whenever a kid has a birthday, whenever someone just in an offhand way complains about not sleeping because of their kids, it's just another hit in that spot. And the way that we look at it today is not the way they looked at it then. We don't believe, well, there's something inherently wrong with you. No, we know. This could have easily been, very likely was, the biggest wound that they had faced. And Zechariah is, obviously, it hasn't caused them to turn away from God. It hasn't caused them to just, I'm sure at times they were angry, but they've continued to, they realized even though this isn't working out, there is still a correct direction for us to go. And they were going in that direction. And Zechariah was just doing his thing. He was working with the censer. He was praying the prayers. He was in there by himself. And then he just turns and bam, at the right side of the altar, there's this angel. There's a whole lot of meaning in the fact that he was on the right side, but we, again, don't have time. Alas. And he says, your prayers have been heard. And you're going to have a son. And you're going to name him John. He will be a joy and delight to you, and many will rejoice because of his birth, for he will be great in the sight of the Lord. And then he gives some specific things. One, he said, you got to name him John. Back then, you didn't really go out on a limb and name, your kids odd things. You name them your name, or something very close, or your father's name, or something like that. We've all probably seen online Absidy. Did you hear about this, mother that named, or their parents that named their daughter ABCDE, and it's pronounced Absidy, and apparently a Southwest airline person was laughing at that name, and so she put it on the web to, say, look, how dare you laugh at my daughter's name, and then people are laughing at her for naming her daughter ABCDE. But anyway, we don't need to go into that. But the point is, we have a way of doing things. Theirs was very different. You named him your name or something that was in your family line, and the angel said, no, you're going to name him this name. And then he gave some other things. He's never to take wine or other fermented drink, and it would be filled with the Holy Spirit even before he's born. Many of the people of Israel will he bring back to the Lord their God. And he will go on before the Lord in the spirit and power of Elijah to turn the hearts of the parents to their children and the disobedient to the wisdom of the righteous, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. So he's saying, okay, this is what you're going to do. You doesn't drink. That's it. That's off the table. I think most parents, when their kids are born, and you will never drink, but that's, in this case, it was real. And then he said he's going to be very similar to Elijah. He's going to have a very similar impact to Elijah. And a lot of people did think that John the Baptist, that's who he becomes, that he was Elijah, that somehow he had been reincarnated. And God said, well, I'm not doing that. He's just like him. So just let him be like him, and he's not him. Let's be okay with that. And then you see that he is going to be a prophet. He's going to turn the hearts of the parents to their children and the disobedient to the wisdom of the righteous, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. These people had been asking for the Lord to return for hundreds of years at this point. Hundreds of years. And they weren't ready. So often, there are things that we do where we will ask God for something. And it seems like a reasonable ask. It seems like a good ask. It seems like something that makes sense. We're not trying to just be selfish. We're asking him for something that is legitimately, seemingly good. And then God doesn't do anything. At least that's how it seems. We've talked about this before, but you and I, sometimes when we ask God for something, we have a clock in the back of our head that starts running. And we wouldn't say, well, theologically, what I believe is that when I make requests of God, that it is appropriate for me to ask him 10 times. And after the 11th time, he's not going to do it. Or 15 times or 20 times. We wouldn't have a number that we put on it, but all of us have a sense of, okay, when is it clear that God just he's not going to do it? I've asked him for this, and asked him for this, and asked him for this, and apparently he just doesn't want to do it. And then we kind of revert back to the thinking that they had culturally that was wrong back then. There must be something wrong with me. God doesn't love me as much as someone else, or he doesn't care for me as much as someone else. I must not be as important to him. I don't have his attention like someone else. And we always have that someone else. We always know who that someone else is. That it seems like they just, they cough, and God's like, wait, what? Did you ask for something? Because I don't want to miss it. It's like that's how it feels. And it feels like for us, it's like, how long? None of us would say there's a certain number of times or there's a certain number of days, but all of us have in the back of our mind a clock. And if it isn't done by here, it probably won't be. But what you see in the Scripture, consistently and almost without exception, is that God does start moving. He just doesn't move at our speed. I think it was Peter, right, that said, God isn't slow the way that we understand slowness. It's because they felt it too. They're like, well, God, how long is it going to take you? And in a culture like ours that's so focused on efficiency and speed and everything is faster and faster, if someone made a computer and it's slower, we would think, oh, that's not a great thing. AT&T has that as basically their business model for cell coverage. So we're just not going to cover you very much so you can slow down. And people don't love it. Comcast does the same thing. We're not thinking, oh, that's great. I appreciate Comcast for having my signal go down so consistently so I can reflect on other things. We don't do that. We think, no, fast, more, quicker. Predictable. These people had been asking God for a Messiah for hundreds of years, and God's like, they're not ready. So I'm going to send someone to them. I'm going to do it through this couple that has not had a child. I'm going to bless them, not just with one. How many times did they ask him for one? How many times in that amount of time did they stop asking him because it was too frustrating and then start again later? If you have really dealt with something, a loss, a lack, something like that, you know that you pray for a long time and then nothing happens and then you stop because you just I'm done. And you start again and you stop, I'm done. How many times did they do that? And then God gave them what they asked for, and in a way that was so much bigger than anything they could have imagined. What they probably were praying for was a normal kid. They wanted a normal life. And God wrote them into this book. All they did is let him do it. I mean, that's the reason that we like reading stories, that we like this kind of thing where it's like nothing's happening and it's been so long and it's been this woman that's hemorrhaging for 13 years and then she gets healed. I mean, it's like we'd be glad if she was hemorrhaging for 13 days, and then she gets healed, but it's like, it's barely 2 weeks. I mean, who cares? It's like, no, we like it when the stakes are really high like that. We just don't tend to want to be in that story. We like reading about others, but we don't want that for ourselves. We want quick, efficient. God wants to make our lives great. So we see that John was born. Zechariah asked the angel, how can I be sure of this? I'm an old man and my wife is well along in years. He's a senior citizen. They haven't had kids for a long time. What, I'm virile now? What, I mean, it's like, what does that even mean? And so he asks this really normal question. And then you see the gravitas of the moment because the angel, Gabriel, he's not having it. I think if we imagine ourselves as Gabriel, we say, oh, Zechariah, I understand your doubts, sir. Let me give you a sign. No, Zechariah, the angel said, okay, I'll give you a sign. You ask a question like that, here's your sign. The angel said to him, I'm Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God, and I've been sent to you to tell you this good news. I just picture him like kind of, I don't know, I'm sure it wasn't like that. I'm sure he wasn't irritated. He's Gabriel. He's been through some stuff. He talked to Daniel several hundred years before. He gets how we are, but I don't know. I just picture, it's like somewhere, it's like, I don't know. In fact, we have a picture of Gabriel up here. Yeah, that's him. Yeah, you gotta love art from the Middle Ages. It's like, that was a selfie he took. It was, just there, everybody's always like this, or there, there's of course the halo to show he's holy. And I don't know anybody that stands like that. I don't know how that works. But, anyway, so he's standing there, and so he's saying, okay, all right, fair enough. You'd like a sign? Here's your sign. I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God, and I've been sent to speak to you and tell you this good news. And now you will be silent and not able to speak until this day happens, because you did not believe my words, which will come true at their appointed time. I mean, we want this angel to be like, dude, I get it, man. It's hard to believe. It's crazy, I don't know. You're gonna look at your hand. It's got 6 fingers. There's your sign. That's what we want. We want 6 fingers. God, and he goes on. It's okay. All right. You don't know? You won't speak until this happens. Meanwhile, the people were waiting for Zechariah and wondering why he stayed so long in the temple. This was a legitimate concern. When the high priest would go into the Holy of Holies once a year behind that curtain, they would have bells on his robe and a rope around his foot. And that was because if you didn't purify yourself fully enough, then you would just die when you were in the presence of God. And so if someone's around the curtain and you're not hearing anything, you're wondering, uh-oh. They had the bells so they could hear you moving, and they had the rope if they didn't hear the bells. That's how it worked. And, so they were just wondering, Zechariah, what happened? And so anyway, the people, he wasn't in the Holy of Holies, but he was close. Maybe he fell against it, and I don't know what they thought. Wondering why he stayed so long in the temple. When he came out, he couldn't speak to him because he can't speak now. They realized he had seen a vision in the temple, for he kept making signs to them, but remained unable to speak. I just love this. This is amazing. What must have been going through Zechariah's mind? When his time of service was what's coming up now is the best. This is the best part of the whole story. Imagine this. They're both senior citizens. He can't talk. Imagine this. When the time of his service was completed, he returned home. After this, his wife, Elizabeth, became pregnant and for 5 months remained in seclusion. Now imagine that interaction. You're Zechariah. You know something that Elizabeth doesn't know, but you can't talk. How do you walk her through something like this? I don't know. To me, that just seems very interesting. I'd be very curious how that went down. But after his wife Elizabeth became pregnant, and for 5 months remained in seclusion. The Lord has done this for me, she said. In these days, he has shown his favor and taken away my disgrace among the people. Now, that's really key to Luke. Again, remember, Luke drops these important things in. For 5 months, she remained in seclusion. Now, this is not mentioned anywhere else. We do not know why this is. We can say we think maybe this is it or maybe, but that's all we're doing. But imagine this woman who has not been able to have children. And then she's blessed to become pregnant. Could you imagine not being sure what to do with that? Could you imagine God has come through, or you're starting to believe that he might? Can you imagine wanting to kind of keep that private for a little while, just to protect yourself? This amazing provision of God, and you kind of keep it to yourself. But she says, she gets it. The Lord has done this for me. In these days, he has shown his favor and taken away my disgrace among the people. And then after this, the next lines are, in the sixth month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, the Lord sent the angel Gabriel to Mary. Here's what he's trying to do. These people have been asking for something, and God knows the appointed time for it best to occur. They wanted a Messiah, and he's going to bring one. But they have to be ready. We often get where we think things ought to land, but we rarely get the best path to it. This is an oversimplification, but we get our kids, when they were younger, the ones that were interested in basketball, Emma wasn't terribly interested in basketball. It's fine, Hey, we choose our sports. It's fine. But when the boys wanted to play basketball, when they wanted to learn to play basketball, what they really wanted to do was learn how to dunk. They wanted to shoot from three-point land, which, is amazing when they can barely get the ball up to the basket. But they wanted to do these big shots. They wanted to do these big things. What they didn't want to necessarily do was do dribble drills, and they didn't want to do layup drills. They didn't want to do these things, because what we want to do, we get where we want to be, but we rarely get the best way there. And that's the reason that we have to trust people to guide us there. And the reason that is in place is because that is what the Spirit does for us now. We usually get where we want to be, but we don't understand that we're maybe not ready for it yet. And we take this clock that's in the back of our head. It does not take into account the fact that God is trying to get us to where we need to be. This is what God was doing through Zechariah. He was answering a prayer. He was preparing the way. And he was blessing a man and a woman in a way that they could have never imagined. In this season of Advent, this must be in our minds. Or this delay between the Advents, as Christian talked about. The advent of Jesus' first coming and the advent of his next coming. That delay is just God messing around. God is doing something in you. And he's doing something in me. And he's preparing us. And he's guiding us. And he's wanting us to be able to help other people to know that there is a genuine creator God that actually loves them. Everyone around us deserves to know it. We cannot make anybody believe it if they don't want. That's between them and God. But they deserve a chance to know that that is the case. Do they not? He's saying, I want to raise up a people that are going to live in this reality and give people a look at what this is like. He is preparing you and he's preparing me for the next Advent. And as we're waiting, we do like Zechariah. We stay focused on the right things. We trust him to respond to our prayers in the time that is best and most loving for him. And we allow him to write us into something that is bigger than any of us could imagine by ourselves. Our prayers, if we're honest, is that we would have a comfortable, predictable, kind of boring life. If we're honest. You ask anyone in the scriptures that really went for it, if they regret for a second going for it. And what you'll find is they'll say no. You ask Zechariah if he regrets the years of suffering. I don't think he enjoyed them. But I think when he saw the other side, he got it. You and I, we just don't see the other side just yet. As we're entering into this Advent, let's commit to this. Let's commit to this one singular thing. As we're praying, as we're approaching God, as we're approaching our walk with him, that we would just consider that he doesn't just do that stuff in the Bible, that he's doing it now. Let's just believe that all the cool stories have not been written yet. And he's looking to see who among us is just willing to hang in, not perfectly, because they didn't do it perfectly, but hang in and let him make it what it could be. Let's do that this week. As we're praying, let's say, God, this is what I'm asking. This is what I want to see you do, but I'm the Lord's servant. Let it be to me as you have said. Let's pray. God, we just ask for your help to do this. Without you, we won't. We will stop. We will get tired. We'll get frustrated. Even with you, we're going to get tired and frustrated. God, we thank you that you don't expect us to do it perfectly. You just say, just hang in there with me. That if we realize that we have kind of walked away in frustration, that we just turn around and come back. God, would you please move in us so that we can trust you a little bit more to do these kinds of things through us? Not because we're amazing, but because you are. We're very normal. But Lord, the scriptures are filled with the stories of very normal people that just let you be you. Let us be like them. God, we love you. Amen.